Today we will be discussing Chapter 14, From the Earliest Art to the Bronze Age. Our group consists of Hannah Kicklighter, Michelle Houston, Shanderica Jones, Abhishek Qatar, and Jason Kane. Here's a quick overview of Chapter 14. In this chapter, we will explore the art history from the earliest Paleolithic period to the Bronze Age, discuss the characteristics of art and its influences during the different periods, compare and contrast the art of the different periods to highlight the differences in point of view and lifestyle, and finally, we will discuss the earliest civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Here is what to expect during our presentation. In this presentation, we will present an overview of the Paleolithic period, Neolithic period, Mesopotamia, and Egypt art. We will discuss key terms and points from each time period as presented by the text, discuss the unique culture of each time period and their way of aesthetics, discuss the featured Neolithic period art Stonehenge, and using the analytic model of art criticism. And finally, we will discuss the earliest civilizations and how their unique culture influenced their art. Okay, let's begin. The Paleolithic period, or the Stone Age, spans from about 2 million years ago to about 20,000 years ago. It is characterized by the period that humans developed the use of stone tools. Art forms include sprinkled powders and beads, stone carvings of people and animals, and paintings of animals in nature. One other form of art was petroglyphs, which are made by scratching or pecking the surface of exposed stone. During the Paleolithic period, stone carvings often showed what the people of this time were experiencing. People made stone carvings of the animals they hunted. The oldest carving of a human being, the whole house, was made during the Paleolithic period. Paintings during this time rarely had people in them and were expressively naturalistic. Art from this period usually had simple, abstract images of people, while animals were more complex and realistic. Next up is the Neolithic period, or the New Stone Age. It began around 10,200 BC and ended between 4,500 and 2000 BC. This was a period in the development of human technology. Art forms in this period include weaving, architecture, construction of megaliths, and the more stylized pictographs. Statuettes, or mini statues, also became popular again during this time. The theme of these focused a lot on female and mother goddess image. Megaliths are large stones that are used for building large structures or monuments. Stonehenge is comprised of megaliths. Art during this era started to become more ornamental and had a decorative purpose. The paintings started to consist of human images rather than animal ones. Also, the humans started to look more and more like actual human beings. The pottery in this era also started to become more prevalent, replacing stone and wood utensils. The pottery was also well decorated. Here is a picture of Stonehenge, which was made during the Neolithic period. In the coming slides, we will critique this piece of art using the analytic model of art criticism. My initial reaction to Stonehenge was confusion. I wondered why people would take the massive rocks and form them in a circle of sorts. I initially thought that maybe it was a huge sundial or a way to tell the seasons. A description of Stonehenge is the monument is located in south central England. The medium is rocks and landscaping in general. It has carvings of daggers and axes. It has made over a 1,000-year period. It has gone through phases of wood, ditches being built, and finally the stones brought to the site. I think the piece shows symmetry in the size of the rocks and the way that they are placed. The site was constructed over thousands of years, so the meaning has most likely changed as well. As for formal characterization, I have always assumed that it was a sundial or something to do with space. It looks similar to both sundials and even the ancient Mayan calendar that was also based on space. When it comes to historical and cultural context, the circular ditch and bank area date from around 3200 BC. The entirety of this piece is aligned in celestial directions. The road that interrupts the fluidity of the piece is aligned with the northernmost midwinter moonrise. In a somewhat equal but opposite sense, there is a hailstone that aligns with the midsummer sunrise. This leads people to believe that Stonehenge was created to worship these events in some way. However, since it was created during a very long expansion of time, it most likely had many uses. The carved structures on some of these stones that show daggers and axes most likely represent battle of some sort. Many buried skeletal remains were found near the site. This leads people to believe that the space may have been used as a funeral site for people who had participated in battle. As for interpretation, if I were to go back in time, I think that the work would have been for tracking of the solar system. I guess it's more or less selfish because I love to look at the stars and wonder what they all mean. Since the piece is so old, we really don't know what the people who made it called the area. For evaluation, I think that it is obvious that this place succeeded in getting attention. It has been around for thousands of years, and people continue to make pilgrimage to this site. We are left dumbfounded and amazed by the ability of humans to create something like this without modern technology. The stones were 25 tons, and they were toted for 19 miles to the site. Why? Despite the original use, we can still appreciate the time and effort put into making the art. It is amazing that these people positioned the rocks to align with celestial happenings. They appreciated the world around them and made a gorgeous, giant work that still stands thousands of years later. Now to discuss the beginnings of civilization. Early civilizations formed independently. They formed all over the world and at various points in time. There are four major civilizations. One is the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Iraq, which were vulnerable to invasion. The Nile River in Egypt was protected by the desert. The other is the Indus River in West Pakistan and India. And lastly, the Yellow River in northern China. Okay, let's discuss our first civilization, Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is the broad plain between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The first civilization arose in the southernmost part of Mesopotamia and is called Sumer. Here, religion and government were one. Sumerians worshipped a hierarchy of nature gods in temples atop of huge platforms called ziggurats, which is pictured below. Ziggurats in other Mesopotamian architecture were made of brick and wood, so very little remains today. Sumerian court life is shown here with Lar, which is pictured here. The bearded bull symbolizes royalty. The narrative panel on the bull's head is original. Animals in the panel take on human-like traits. On the upper panel, there is a man embracing two bulls, which is a type of heraldic design. The heraldic design also influenced art in later cultures. In the lower panel, there is a goat attending to a scorpion man. Both the upper and lower panels are taken from the Epic of Gilgamesh. Northern Mesopotamia is known as Akkadian. Akkadian was under the rule of a single ruler. Pictured here is the head of an Akkadian rule, which shows monarchy. The detailed hair and the rhythmic pattern depicts the influence of Sumerian stylization. The blend of the formal design and naturalism is a characteristic of later Mesopotamian and Egyptian art. Finally, let's discuss the major civilization of Egypt. Some of the most impressive work done by the Egyptians are the Great Pyramids, which are huge mountain-like structures built as burial vaults for pharaohs. Egyptian culture was highly focused on life after death, which contributed to much of their artwork and designs. Most of the artwork by the Egyptians were focused on preserving bodies and creating tombs, especially for those considered royalty. Because Egyptians were so focused on the preservation of the body, they found beauty in creating temples that would protect the bodies after death and leave them unharmed. Their artwork served a very practical purpose of preserving bodies while also being built with architectural beauty to honor those that have passed. Hierarchic scale is the Egyptian social ranking system. When the human figures were created, the size depended on their position in society according to their hierarchic scale. I personally think that the Egyptian art culture is really fascinating. At first, I thought their artwork looked mostly boring, brown figures and dirt mounds, if I'm being honest. However, When learning more about the Egyptians, I thought it was awesome that they created pieces of art without directly meaning to. They were creating something beautiful to honor those that had died or rulers of their land. Not only this, but the strength and integrity of the things they built are much greater than that of an average architectural art piece.